Tonight, before you go to bed, you're probably going to brush your teeth, look in the mirror, and smile. Chances are you've had a filling, know someone with braces, or have been warned about sugar by your dentist. Now imagine standing face to face with someone who lived 15,000 years ago. They've never brushed, never flossed, never visited a dentist, never used toothpaste even once, and somehow, their teeth might actually be healthier than yours. That sounds impossible. Until archaeologists started digging up ancient skulls and found evidence that completely changed what scientists thought they knew about human dental health. Because the biggest threat to your teeth wasn't invented by bacteria, it was invented by civilization. Now imagine someone who lived 15,000 years ago. A hunter standing beside a campfire after tearing strips of meat from a freshly killed deer. Someone who had never seen a toothbrush, never heard of toothpaste, never visited a dentist, never even knew bacteria existed. What do you think their teeth looked like? Most people picture cracked, blackened smiles with half the teeth missing. Archaeologists expected exactly the same thing, but when they began uncovering prehistoric skeletons across Europe, Africa, and Asia, they found something that made absolutely no sense. The teeth were astonishingly healthy. Many skulls showed almost no cavities at all. Their jaws were wide, their teeth were naturally straight. Some individuals had lived into old age while keeping nearly every tooth they were born with. Meanwhile, modern humans brush twice a day, floss, rinse with antibacterial mouthwash, visit dentists every 6 months, and still spend billions of dollars every year treating tooth decay. So what happened? How did a species that never brushed its teeth end up with healthier mouths than the one that invented the toothbrush? The answer has almost nothing to do with brushing, and everything to do with the world we built around ourselves. To understand why, we have to forget everything we think we know about healthy teeth. Because the real story begins long before toothpaste. It begins with breakfast. Imagine waking up 30,000 years ago. There are no cereal boxes, no toast, no pancakes, no coffee sweetened with sugar, no convenience store waiting around the corner. If your group doesn't find food today, you simply don't eat. When food finally arrives, it looks nothing like the meals sitting on modern dinner tables. Perhaps roasted meat from yesterday's hunt, a handful of wild berries if they're in season, fibrous roots dug from hard ground, maybe a few bitter nuts that take several minutes just to crack open. Every bite demands effort. Every meal changes with the landscape. And one thing is almost completely missing: sugar. Not the tiny amounts naturally found inside fruit. Large, concentrated amounts. The kind hiding inside soft drinks, breakfast cereals, cookies, bread, candy, flavored yogurt, and thousands of processed foods lining supermarket shelves. Today, the average person consumes more sugar in a single week than many ancient humans encountered in months. That difference quietly transformed one of the most important ecosystems in the human body: your mouth. Right now, billions of microscopic organisms are living inside it. They cover your tongue, your gums, your cheeks, and every single tooth. Most people imagine bacteria as tiny villains waiting to attack. The reality is far stranger. Your mouth is more like an ancient forest. Hundreds of different bacterial species live together in delicate balance. Some consume food particles, others compete with dangerous microbes, preventing them from taking over. As long as no single species dominates, the entire ecosystem remains surprisingly stable. But forests can collapse. Scientists discovered this by studying something almost nobody would ever think to examine: ancient dental plaque. It doesn't sound particularly exciting, yet fossilized plaque has become one of archaeology's greatest biological time capsules. Long after flesh disappears and even bones begin to deteriorate, hardened plaque can preserve microscopic DNA from the bacteria that once lived inside a person's mouth. It's like finding a frozen snapshot of an ecosystem that vanished thousands of years ago. When researchers sequenced DNA from prehistoric plaque, they weren't expecting a revolution. They simply wanted to know what kinds of bacteria ancient humans carried. Instead, they discovered an entirely different world. Hunter-gatherers possessed remarkably diverse oral microbiomes. No single bacterial species dominated the others. Instead, dozens of populations existed together in remarkable balance. For hundreds of thousands of years, that balance remained largely unchanged. Then humanity made one decision that would permanently reshape every mouth on Earth. We stopped wandering. Around 10,000 years ago, humans began planting crops instead of constantly searching for food. Villages appeared, fields replaced forests. For the first time, entire communities depended on wheat, barley, rice, and other domesticated grains. From the perspective of civilization, farming was revolutionary. From the perspective of your teeth, it was the beginning of a completely different story, because grains contain enormous amounts of starch. And the moment starch enters your mouth, your saliva starts breaking it down into simple sugars, to one particular bacterium that was the greatest feast in human history. Its name is Streptococcus mutans. If you've ever had a cavity, you've almost certainly shared your mouth with it. This tiny organism doesn't destroy teeth because it's evil. It destroys teeth because it's hungry. As it digests sugar, it produces acid. That acid slowly dissolves tooth enamel, the hardest substance in the human body. Not in a day, not after one dessert, but meal after meal, year after year. The damage quietly accumulates until one day your dentist points to a tiny dark spot on an X-ray and says the word nobody wants to hear, cavity. But here's the fascinating part. Agriculture wasn't actually the biggest disaster for human teeth. Something else would come thousands of years later. Something that would completely overwhelm the natural defenses our ancestors had relied on for hundreds of millennia. And once it arrived, the balance inside the human mouth would never fully recover. The greatest disaster for human teeth didn't happen when we invented farming. It happened when sweetness became cheap. Imagine walking into a modern supermarket. Without realizing it, you're entering one of the largest sugar warehouses in human history. It's in the bread, the ketchup, the breakfast cereal, the yogurt, the salad dressing. Even foods that don't taste sweet often contain enough starch or added sugar to feed billions of bacteria. For almost all of human history, this simply wasn't possible. Sugar was incredibly rare. Finding something sweet usually meant discovering a beehive or waiting for fruit to ripen for a few weeks each year. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Factories learned how to refine sugar cheaply and produce it on an enormous scale. Almost overnight, a luxury reserved for kings became an everyday ingredient. From the perspective of civilization, it was progress. From the perspective of the bacteria inside your mouth, it was paradise. Imagine a quiet forest where every animal has just enough food to survive. Then suddenly someone begins dumping truckloads of food into one small clearing every single day. The peaceful balance disappears. One species explodes in number, everything else struggles to survive. That's exactly what happened inside the human mouth. The bacteria that loved sugar no longer had to compete. They simply multiplied. Every spoonful of sugar became another invitation. Every sip of soda became another feast. Every cookie became another acid attack on your teeth. And archaeologists can actually watch this happen through time. When researchers compare prehistoric hunter-gatherers with early farmers, cavities become noticeably more common. Compare early farmers with people living after industrial sugar became widespread, and the difference becomes even more dramatic. Human civilization left its fingerprints on our teeth. But just when scientists thought they had solved the mystery, archaeology uncovered something that didn't fit the story. Deep inside Tafaralt Cave in Morocco, researchers excavated skeletons belonging to hunter-gatherers who lived roughly 15,000 years ago, thousands of years before farming, thousands of years before refined sugar. These people should have had excellent teeth. Instead, many had severe tooth decay. Some mouths looked surprisingly modern. The discovery puzzled archaeologists. Had the entire theory been wrong? If agriculture caused cavities, why were these hunter-gatherers suffering from the same disease? The answer wasn't hidden inside their teeth. It was scattered across the cave floor. Researchers found enormous quantities of acorns and pine nuts. Both are completely natural foods. Both are nutritious. But they're also packed with sticky carbohydrates that cling tightly to teeth. These hunter-gatherers had unknowingly discovered nature's own version of snack food. For months, perhaps years, they had eaten foods that fed cavity-causing bacteria almost as effectively as modern processed carbohydrates. Suddenly, the mystery made sense. Cavities were never a disease of civilization alone. They were a disease of opportunity. Whenever bacteria received a constant supply of fermentable carbohydrates, whether from wild nuts or chocolate bars, they responded exactly the same way. They produced acid. The acid dissolved enamel, and cavities followed. But food wasn't the only difference between ancient humans and us. The real surprise came after they finished eating. Imagine you're sitting beside a campfire 25,000 years ago. Your evening meal is over. There are no leftovers sealed inside plastic containers. No refrigerator waiting nearby. No vending machine. No midnight snack. The next meal might not arrive until tomorrow, maybe even later. To us, that sounds like deprivation. To your teeth, it sounds like peace. Because the moment eating stops, another process quietly begins. Your saliva gets to work. Most people think saliva exists simply to help us chew and swallow. In reality, it's one of the greatest repair systems ever produced by evolution. Every minute, saliva delivers calcium and phosphate back to your enamel. Those minerals slowly rebuild microscopic damage caused by acids throughout the day. Dentists call this remineralization. But imagine it another way. Picture thousands of tiny construction workers walking across every tooth. Whenever acid creates a microscopic crack, they immediately begin repairing it. They patch, they rebuild, they reinforce. Most of the time, you never notice they were there. But construction crews need something modern humans rarely provide: time. Imagine trying to repair a bridge while traffic never stops. Workers begin laying fresh concrete. Then another truck drives over it. They start again. Another truck, another. Eventually the bridge falls apart, not because the workers were bad at their jobs, but because they never had a chance to finish. That is exactly what constant snacking does to your teeth. Breakfast, coffee with sugar, a biscuit, lunch, soft drink, candy, dinner, dessert, late night snack. Each time you eat, bacteria launch another acid attack. Each attack lasts roughly 30 minutes or longer. When food arrives every hour or two, your mouth never fully recovers. The construction crew never catches up. Ancient humans didn't intentionally practice intermittent fasting. They simply lived in a world where food wasn't always available. Without realizing it, they gave their saliva exactly what it needed: hours of uninterrupted repair. Ironically, the healthiest thing many prehistoric people did for their teeth wasn't eating a special food. It was not eating at all. But even that wasn't their greatest advantage, because every single meal they ate cleaned their teeth in a way modern food almost never does, and that simple difference shaped not only their smiles, but the very bones of their faces. But here's something even more surprising. Not every ancient human simply ignored their teeth. Long before plastic toothbrushes, long before toothpaste, people in parts of Africa, the Middle East and South Asia discovered something growing right in front of them, a tree. More specifically, a small branch from a tree called the miswak tree. At first glance, it doesn't look like much, just a thin stick. But chew one end for a minute, and the fibers begin to separate into hundreds of tiny natural bristles. In other words, nature had already invented a toothbrush. People rubbed those fibers across their teeth, between them and along their gums, scraping away food long before anyone understood what plaque even was. And here's the remarkable part. Modern scientists have tested miswak sticks in laboratories and found they don't just work because of friction. The wood naturally contains compounds with antibacterial properties along with minerals that can help support healthy gums and reduce plaque. A stick picked from the right tree was doing part of the job that modern toothpaste does today. Of course, this wasn't something every prehistoric human used. The tree only grows in certain regions, and for most of human history, people relied mainly on their diet, constant chewing, and the natural wear of coarse foods to keep their mouths clean. It's just someone looking at a tree and realizing the toothbrush had been growing there the entire time.